I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I'd been with my wife Emily for about 5 years. We met in college, had the usual ups and downs, but I genuinely believed we were solid. We talked about marriage, maybe kids someday, and I was even starting to plan our wedding. Things seemed good, or so I thought. Looking back, there were warning signs I brushed off. Emily was always a bit irritable lately. Snippy over small things, snapping at me over nothing. She'd cancel plans last minute, say she was busy, or just ignore my texts altogether. I figured she was stressed, work, life, whatever. She's always been a bit bitchy, but I loved her, so I shrugged it off. Plus, she was beautiful, charming when she wanted to be, and I thought we had something real. The trouble started a couple of weeks before our wedding. Emily began acting weird. She'd leave her phone on silent and hide it when I walked into the room. I caught her deleting messages once or twice. She'd get defensive when I asked her about it, say I was overreacting, or being paranoid, that she was just stressed with wedding planning. I didn't want to believe it, but the gut feeling gnawed at me. Something wasn't right. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling great. I decided to surprise her with dinner, maybe talk about the wedding plans. As I walked inside, I noticed her car wasn't in the driveway. That was odd. She usually worked late, but she'd always at least tell me. I checked the bedroom. The bed was unmade, which wasn't usual because she's obsessed with keeping things tidy. I looked around, and that's when I saw it. A used condom wrapper on the nightstand. Not just that, there was lipstick on the pillow, smudged and definitely not mine. My stomach clenched. I froze, heart pounding. I wasn't a jealous guy, but this hit different. It was like I'd been punched in the gut. She'd been lying to me all along. I looked around for more evidence, and I found her phone on the desk, unlocked. I couldn't resist. I grabbed it, scrolled through her messages. There were texts, flirty, intimate words, too many to ignore. She was cheating on me and with someone I never suspected, her own brother, my best man at the wedding. My mind raced. How could she do this? Just days before our wedding, she's out there sleeping with my brother. Every promise, every smile, every I love you suddenly felt like a lie. I felt betrayed on every level, not just by her but by my own family. It was like my entire world was crashing down in that moment. I wanted to confront her, but I also just wanted to run, to hide, to process what I just discovered. But I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth was out, and everything was about to change forever. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my mind clear, but it was damn near impossible. My hands were trembling as I put her phone back where I found it. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this? With my brother, of all people. The guy I trusted more than anyone. The guy who was supposed to stand beside me at our wedding. It felt like my entire world was collapsing, like I was drowning in a sea of lies and betrayal. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it there and then. I needed some space, some time to think about what to say and how to say it. So I left the house, got in my car, and drove to the one place I felt I could breathe, my dad's place. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't sugarcoat things or tell me to stay calm. I was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. When I finally sat down with my dad, I told him everything. I showed him the evidence, her messages, the condom wrapper, the lipstick. His face went pale. He's a no-nonsense guy, and I could tell he was just as angry as I was. We didn't talk much at first, just sit in silence, both of us knowing that things would never be the same. My dad looked at me and said, "You've got to decide what you're going to do. But whatever you choose, don't let her or your brother get away with this. They've crossed a line." I wanted to scream, cry, punch something, but I held it in. I felt so numb, like I wasn't even real anymore. How could Emily do this? How could she sleep with my brother? I kept replaying every moment, her smile, the way she'd look at me, and then that night. That night she was with someone else, someone who was supposed to be my closest confidant. I couldn't shake the image of them together, the sex, the betrayal written all over her face in my mind. I called Emily later that night. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen the messages, the condom, and I wasn't stupid. She tried to deny it at first, saying I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that her phone must have been hacked. Classic. She kept lying, throwing out every excuse she could think of, saying she was stressed, that it was just a one-time mistake, that she loved me. But I knew better. I knew she was lying and I could hear the fake tears in her voice. I told her I was done, that I wouldn't be part of her games anymore. I hung up before she could say anything else. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but it was real. I was angry at her, furious at my brother, and incredibly hurt. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to the truth. I trusted her so much, believed in what we had. And now it was all gone. The wedding was supposed to be in a week, and instead of excitement, I was drowning in this mess. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around her face, her lies, and the fact that she'd slept with my own brother just days before our wedding. I kept wondering how she could be so callous, so selfish. And the worst part, I knew this wasn't going to be over anytime soon. The betrayal ran too deep, and I was just getting started on figuring out what to do next. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything other than this whirlwind of betrayal that had ripped through my life. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her sneaky, bitchy smirk when she lied, the way she'd try to spin her stories, deny everything. But I knew the truth now, and no amount of her crying or pleading was going to change that. She was a cheat, a liar. And worst of all, she was sleeping with my brother just days before our wedding. I spent hours, maybe days, just stewing over what to do. I knew I couldn't be in the same room with her, not anymore. But I also didn't want to just walk away without doing something, some kind of revenge, some way to make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't the type to just let this slide. I wanted her to feel the same pain I felt, betrayed, humiliated, like her lies had been exposed for everyone to see. One night I finally decided to act. I sat down, pulled out my laptop, and started planning. I knew she was bitchy and manipulative, so I had to be smart. I needed proof that would really hit her where it hurt. First, I started digging into her social media. I found some more messages, flirty texts, even some photos she must have thought were private. I saved everything. Then I reached out to a private investigator. I figured if I was going to ruin her, I'd need more than just her own texts and some lipstick on the pillow. While waiting for the investigator's report, I looked for ways to mess with her head. I knew she'd try to deny everything if I confronted her again, so I wanted to catch her in the act. I installed a tracking app on her phone, just enough to see where she was going without her noticing. I didn't want to be the guy harassing her, but I wanted proof of her lying, her sneaking around, her cheating. It wasn't long before I saw her car at a hotel near downtown. The messages she sent to my brother, her secret meetings, they all confirmed my suspicions. When I finally got the report from the investigator, I was sick. There were photos of her with my brother, kissing, holding hands, even in bed together. I couldn't believe it. It was like some sick nightmare. My wife, the woman I was supposed to marry, she was sleeping with my own brother just days before the wedding. I felt rage boiling inside me, but I also felt this crushing sense of loss. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been lying right to my face all along. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I decided to do it face to face, not over the phone or through texts. I arranged to meet her at her apartment. When she saw me, her bitchy smirk flickered for a split second. She knew she was caught. I told her I had everything, proof of her lies, her affair with my brother, all of it. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away with it anymore. Her excuses, her tears, her fake apologies, they all sounded hollow. I just looked at her and said, "You've crossed a line, Emily. You cheated on me, slept with my brother, and thought you could get away with it. Well, not anymore." Her reaction, she tried to play the victim, said she didn't mean for it to happen, that she was stressed, that she loved me, that it was all a mistake. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore, that I was done. I couldn't stay married to someone who'd betray me like that, who thought she could lie her way out of it. I told her it was over and I walked out. I didn't look back. I knew I'd made the right decision, even if it hurt like hell. Honestly, I don't even feel anger anymore, just a kind of numbness. I've lost someone I thought I knew. I've lost my trust, my future, maybe even my family. But I also know I've taken control back. I won't let her or my brother ruin me. They've done enough. Now I just have to pick up the pieces and move on, which is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. After that confrontation, everything changed. I moved out of the house we shared, couldn't stand the sight of her or the betrayal lingering in every corner. I stayed with a friend for a while, just trying to breathe, trying to process how deeply I'd been hurt. But honestly, the hardest part was realizing how much trust I'd lost, not just in Emily, but in my own family. I used to think family was everything, but now I wasn't so sure anymore. I started reflecting on everything. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I could have been so blind. She was always bitchy, yeah, but I thought it was just her personality. Turns out, it was her way of hiding what she was really up to. The texts, the secret meetings, she'd been lying and cheating, hiding it behind that bitchy attitude. And my brother, I thought I knew him too. We'd been close, had beers, watched games, shared everything. And now I find out he'd been sleeping with my wife just days before our wedding. It's like a sick joke I don't get. I remember that night vividly. Sitting alone, staring at my phone, feeling the weight of entire betrayal crushing me. I kept replaying everything. Her sneaky smirks, the way she'd brush me off, the nights she was gone. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about how she'd planned this, how she'd played me for months, maybe longer. And my brother, I'd never even suspected him. We'd always been close. That's what cut the deepest. In the days that followed, I started reaching out to people I trusted, my best friends, my dad. I needed support, someone who wouldn't sugarcoat the truth. Everyone was angry too. My dad was furious, said I had to cut her out for good. My friends told me to focus on myself, to forget her and move on. But honestly, it was hard. I felt like a fool. How could I have been so naive? I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, and she'd thrown it all away for what? A quick fuck with my brother. The more I thought about it, the more my anger grew. I started planning my revenge, not directly against them, but in a way that would let her feel everything she'd put me through. I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. I wanted her to see what she'd lost, to know she'd destroyed everything for a meaningless affair. I wasn't the kind of guy to let someone walk all over me without feeling the consequences, so I made some moves. I contacted a lawyer, started getting my ducks in a row. I wanted a divorce, clean and simple, no messy fights but total separation. I also started digging into her social media, looking for more evidence, more ways to make her regret every lie. I found out she'd been talking trash about me, calling me controlling, jealous. She was trying to spin the story, paint me as the bad guy. Honestly, that made me laugh through the tears. She was the one sneaking around, sleeping with my brother, and now she's trying to gaslight everyone into thinking I'm the problem. Yeah, right. I also reached out to my brother. We had a long, brutal talk. He tried to justify himself, said he was just messing around, that he never meant to hurt me, that it was just a moment of weakness. But I told him that didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that he'd crossed a line, betrayed me, and slept with the woman I loved. I told him I never wanted to see him again, and I meant it. That was the last time we spoke. I didn't need that kind of toxicity in my life. It's been a hell of a ride, honestly. The pain still lingers, but I'm slowly starting to rebuild. I realized I can't let her or my brother define me. I've learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes people you care about will surprise you with how little they value you. I'm focusing on myself now, therapy, working out, trying to get back to a place where I can breathe again. But damn, it's hard. Every day's a challenge, and some nights I lie awake wondering how I got here, how I let someone destroy me so completely. But I know one thing for sure, I'll come out of this stronger, even if it's just a little. That's what this pain teaches you, right? To fight, to survive, and to never let someone else's betrayal break you completely. The months passed, and I won't lie, it wasn't easy. I threw myself into everything I could think of: work, gym, therapy. I needed to rebuild some sense of normalcy after the chaos. Still, there were nights when it all hit me again. The betrayal of my trust, the feeling that I was somehow stupid for not seeing it coming. Sometimes I wondered if I'd ever really get past it. But I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, that I didn't need her or my brother in my life anymore. Getting the divorce finalized was a relief, in a way. It marked the official end of that chapter. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, signing the papers, feeling like I was finally taking control again. The judge asked if I wanted to include any stipulations, and I just shook my head. I didn't want anything from her. No alimony, no revenge, just a clean break. I told myself, That was the best I could do, that I was better off without her. But even with the legal stuff over, the emotional scars took longer to heal. I still caught myself thinking about her, about everything she'd done. Sometimes I'd see her name pop up in my mind, and I'd get this sharp pang of anger mixed with heartbreak. Still, I was determined not to let her ruin me completely. I started going out again, reconnecting with friends, even dating casually. Nothing serious, just trying to remind myself that life still had good things ahead, even after all that shit. One thing I learned from this whole nightmare is how fragile trust really is. I used to think love was enough to conquer anything, but I now realize it's also about honesty, respect, and loyalty. Without those, everything crumbles. I'd trusted Emily with my heart, and she'd thrown it away. My brother, who I always thought was a good guy, turned out to be just another player in her game. That realization hurt worse than anything. I also learned to set boundaries. I'm not letting anyone walk all over me anymore. I told myself I'd never be that naive again. If someone shows even the slightest sign of sneaking around or lying, I cut them loose. I'm done being that guy who keeps hopping things will get better when they're clearly not. The betrayal taught me that sometimes walking away is the best choice, better than sticking around and getting more hurt. Now I'm focused on healing myself. I've started therapy, talking through everything, how I felt, how I feel now, what I want for the future. I keep reminding myself that I deserve someone who's honest, who values me. I don't need someone who cheats or lies, who sleeps with my own brother. That's a line I won't cross again. I want a relationship built on trust, respect, and real love. The kind that doesn't shatter with a single lie. Looking back, I know I'll never fully forget what happened, but I also know I'll move past it. I've learned some hard lessons, the kind you only get when life hits you hard. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity. I know what I want, and I know what I won't tolerate anymore. The pain still stings, but I'm learning to live with it, to take it as a reminder that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And honestly, that's the most important thing I can take away from all of this. Now, looking back, I realize that this whole nightmare changed me. It's not every day you find out that your wife, your family, the person you trusted most, was out there sleeping with your brother just days before your wedding. It's a brutal lesson in how fragile the illusion of trust really is. I used to think love was enough to get through anything, but I've learned that honesty and loyalty mean everything, and without those, everything falls apart. I don't hate Emily anymore. Honestly, I just feel sorry for her. She's the one who threw away what we had, who chose to lie and cheat instead of being honest. And my brother, I've forgiven him, but I've learned not to trust him the same way again. They both showed me who they really are: selfish, deceitful, and unworthy of my loyalty. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's better to see the truth now than to keep living in denial. What I want to say to anyone reading this is, trust is a gift. Don't hand it out cheaply, and don't ignore the signs when something feels off. If you catch someone lying or sneaking around, don't brush it off or try to convince yourself it's nothing. Because it's never nothing, trust me. When someone crosses that line, everything changes. And once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Better to walk away early than to stay and hope for a miracle that's never coming. I've learned to cherish myself more, to put my own happiness first. I've started focusing on my career, on my health, on my future without her. I know now that I don't need someone who betrays me, who sleeps with my own family, to feel complete. I've realized I'm stronger than I thought, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is cut your losses and rebuild from the ground up. So that's where I am now, still healing, still cautious, but finally moving forward. I've accepted what happened, learned from it, and I refuse to let this define me. Because if there's one thing this experience has taught me, it's that even after the deepest betrayal, life goes on. And I will find happiness again, maybe even better than before. I just hope anyone else out there going through something similar remembers, you're not alone, and you deserve better than betrayal and lies. Stand tall, move on, and never forget your worth.